this video, I'd like to introduce a project I've been working on for a little while, and that is this camera slider. Now, we've been using camera sliders for years, and I've always wanted to add one to my camera kit, but a slider that can support the weight of your typical cinema setup was extremely expensive. I could really never justify the cost. So what I did, as we always do, is borrow some ideas from here and there, and I came up with this rather simple slider system. With use, the slider has slowly evolved, and I can say it can comfortably hold a fully loaded Alexa XT with an Ingenue 2040-290 zoom and O'Connor 2575 head. The sled, as you can see, is really quite simple. It's made from a piece of 5/8 aluminum plate, and the Mitchell mount is machined right in, along with 1/4 and 3/16 mounting holes. Now, I have these side rails, and the main purpose of the side rail is actually to raise the mounting location of the wheels themselves. Now, the reason for this was that on most skate wheel tube sliders, the camera platform ends up being about this high. You have your skate wheels, the mounting platform, and so usually underneath the camera sled, and with a fluid head, your lens height may be about here. And my experience in the past is that this can actually get quite unstable, and I wanted to do something a little different. And the goal here is to get a low up center of gravity as possible while still having enough room to physically mount the head. So that's why I have these side rails. For wheels, I tried a number of different wheels, a couple different designs, and I ended up with these flange wheels that I had custom cast. They actually work surprisingly well, and I want to continue experimenting with these wheels. Now, one feature I definitely wanted to have in a slider are brakes of some sort. Now, when I first drew up this plans, I came up with this very simple kind of like screw down brake system, and it's just a stud with a rubber pad at the bottom. And this particular one I covered with felt to see if I could use it as a damper. But to be honest, it didn't really work that well. The fact that you had to screw it to engage and disengage was not very popular with the guys, and they're like, could you come up with some type of lever? Now, the next thing I thought was an extremely simple steel lever, and this would actually be made out of aluminum, not steel, and that does sort of definitely help, but you just saw the problem with it. I had to come up with a better idea, because going this way kind of works, going this way kind of works, but then it wants to immediately release going the other way. So just got to do a little bit of math to get it to work better. But then I found a toggle clamp that I wasn't using in the garage, and I decided to mount it. So here we have a simple toggle clamp that I bolted to the side of the sled, and I found, to my surprise, that when I engage it, it really locks the slider in quite well. Disengage, slider rolls freely, engage, simple lever, and it locks it in place. Taking a look at it, again, just this simple rubber pad, pulls away, and engages. So these are so far my experiments with brakes on a simple rail slider. From the beginning, I planned to use rectangular steel for the rails on a slider, for the simple reason that rectangular tubing is much stiffer when spanning a distance than round tubing. And also, steel is significantly stronger than aluminum. And with this steel is not particularly thick-walled, it's really not that heavy. So again, from the beginning, I wanted to go with rectangular tubing. Now, initially, these rails and the way they're supported, they're all designed to be knockdown or portable. And you look at these early pictures here, this was my initial idea, and here's an idea that was, it was machined. What I kind of found on using the slider is that it simply took too long to set up the rails. Especially when the guys saw it for the very first time, there was a bit of a head-scratching moment, and again, that just took more time. So I knew it just wasn't that efficient, so I decided to simply weld the rails together. Now, also initially, these legs were straight up and down. They weren't canted and splayed as you see it right now. But what I kind of found was when the rails again were about this height, the whole thing was starting to get a little wobbly and a little unstable. That's why in this one picture I had the rails on a set of sticks, because that would actually stabilize them. But by canting and splaying the speed rail legs, it actually really stabilized the system in all directions, and I think this is really the way to go. But to give an example of speed of setup, let's just hop outside when I'm setting up this 8-foot section of rails solo on 4 different levels of surfaces. Okay, so working solo, I've just set up an 8-foot slider on 4 different surfaces. Now we take our slider, plop it on, you can mount your camera to it, and one thing, this is a good time for me to illustrate the relative strength of the slider. As you can see, I'm stopping it here. This was designed to hold a fair amount of weight. With this slider system, the one thing that I could do very easily is go into low mode. For example, say we wanted the lens just coming across the surface of the stream bed. I would have the camera here and I would simply set up the camera for inverted mode and then run the slider across the stream. Now, one of the reasons I've always wanted a higher weight capacity with a slider is so I could do a setup something like this. I could do compound moves. For example, it's always kind of wish you had a mini Techno at your disposal at all times, and so often you just don't have the budget for it. But with something like this, a compact jib like the 7 jib from Long Valley Equipment, I'm sure you could imagine some of the shots you could get. For example, say the camera's up here and we were reaching in over some furniture or a table or maybe a window, and we were just kind of pulling in to catch our actor in their moment, to catch our character. Or say you were doing a parallel shot, a dolly shot, again reaching over furniture. Because a dolly shot is very different from a stabilizer shot or a Steadicam shot. They're just different shots, and quite often you just want to have the tools to get that shot. And again, having another axis with a jib arm, it would be possible with with quite a bit of rehearsal and practice to get different shots, like just coming in or just pulling away without that arc of that jib arm doing this, or the way we have to move with jib arms, because we just don't have that additional axis of movement. So that's one thing I wanted to accomplish with this slider. So this is my slider project. Now, if this looks like a tool you'd like to use, just drop me a line and let me know. Thanks for watching.